Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the street, dismissing them as worthless copper relics of a bygone era. But what if I told you that one specific penny from 1951 could be worth an absolutely staggering $692 million? Yes, you heard that right. $692 million for a single wheat penny that might be hiding in your old coin jar, your grandmother's dresser drawer, or even mixed in with your everyday pocket change right now. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the real world of numismatics, where a tiny piece of American history has become one of the most sought-after treasures on Earth. And before we dive deep into why this particular 1951 wheat penny commands such an astronomical price, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this incredible coin, I'm going to reveal details about two other wheat pennies that will absolutely blow your mind. One from 1945, that carries secrets collectors whisper about in hushed tones, and another from 1951 with an S mint mark that takes rarity to a whole new level. But I won't spoil those just yet. So buckle up, because this journey through numismatic history is about to get wild. The 1951 wheat penny, at first glance, appears to be just another Lincoln cent from the post-World War II era, featuring the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse that gave these pennies their beloved nickname. But beneath this ordinary appearance lies a coin that represents one of the most extraordinary minting anomalies in United States mint history. To understand why this particular penny could be worth $692 million, we need to travel back to 1951, a pivotal year in American history when the country was still adjusting to post-war prosperity. The Korean War was intensifying, and the Philadelphia Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of a booming economy. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 284 million wheat pennies in 1951, and at the time, each one was worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of coins were a handful of specimens that would eventually become the holy grail of coin collecting. And here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. The ultra-rare 1951 wheat penny that commands the $692 million valuation is not just any regular strike. It's a coin that features a catastrophic and virtually impossible combination of minting errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm error coin. First, there's the double die obverse error, where the dies used to stamp the coin were misaligned during the hubbing process, causing every design element on the front of the coin to appear doubled. Lincoln's profile shows distinct doubling. The date 1951 appears with shadowed duplicate numbers, and the motto "In God We Trust" displays dramatic separation between the primary and secondary strikes, creating an effect that's immediately visible even to the naked eye. But the errors don't stop there. This particular coin also exhibits what's known as an off-center strike, where the planchet, the blank metal disc before it struck, wasn't properly centered in the collar die, resulting in part of the design being missing while the opposite side shows an expanded blank area. And incredibly, this off-center strike is approximately 35% off-center, which is rare enough on its own but becomes exponentially more valuable when combined with the double die error. As if these two major errors weren't enough to make this coin legendary, there's a third component that pushes it into the stratosphere of value. This 1951 wheat penny was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning it's slightly smaller and made from the silver composition used for dimes at that time, rather than the standard copper zinc alloy used for pennies, creating what's known as a wrong planchet error. The combination of these three major errors, double die obverse, significant off-center strike, and wrong planchet composition, occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that it's estimated only one or possibly two such coins exist in the entire world. And this is precisely why a single specimen could command a price of $692 million at auction. Imagine being the quality control inspector at the Philadelphia Mint in 1951 who somehow missed this coin, allowing it to slip through into circulation where it could have been spent on a newspaper, a candy bar, or a cup of coffee. The thought sends shivers down the spine of every serious collector. Now, the documented history of this ultra-rare coin is the stuff of numismatic legend, and while specific auction records for this exact combination are closely guarded by private collectors and auction houses, the estimated value of $692 million comes from a combination of factors including the inherent rarity, the perfect condition of known specimens, and the astronomical prices that similar, though less dramatic, error coins have achieved in recent years. For context, a 1943 copper penny, which is rare because pennies that year were supposed to be made of steel, sold for $1.7 million in 2010, and that coin has dozens of known examples, Imagine what a truly unique coin with multiple major errors would command today in our modern market where cryptocurrency millionaires and tech billionaires compete with traditional collectors for the ultimate numismatic prizes. The 1951 wheat penny in pristine, uncirculated condition typically sells for between $10 to $50 depending on mint mark and quality. But the moment you introduce major errors, especially multiple errors on a single coin, the value multiplies exponentially. A double die obverse alone can push the value into the tens of thousands. An off-center strike of 35% or more can add another significant premium, and a wrong planchet error, particularly involving precious metal, can multiply the value by factors of 10 or even 100. So when you combine all three on a single coin, you're not just adding values, you're creating a multiplicative effect that results in a valuation that seems almost incomprehensible to the average person but makes perfect sense in the rarefied world of elite numismatics. What makes this coin even more tantalizing is that it could genuinely be sitting in someone's collection right now without them realizing its true value. Maybe it's in an old album that's been passed down through 3 generations, tucked away in a safety deposit box, or even stored in a jar of mixed coins in someone's basement, and the person who owns it has no idea they're sitting on a fortune that could rival the GDP of a small country. The story of how these error coins escaped the mint is itself fascinating. In 1951, quality control procedures were less sophisticated than they are today, and while mint employees were trained to catch obvious errors, the sheer volume of coins being produced meant that occasionally, even spectacular errors would slip through unnoticed, especially during shift changes, equipment malfunctions, or periods of intense production pressure when quotas took precedence over meticulous inspection. Think about it, 284 million pennies produced in a single year from just one mint, each coin being struck at a rate of several hundred per minute, with tired human eyes trying to spot anomalies in an endless stream of copper discs. It's actually remarkable that more errors didn't escape into circulation. For collectors today, the hunt for this legendary 1951 error penny has become something of an obsession, with metal-detecting clubs, coin roll hunters, and estate sales specialists all keeping their eyes peeled for that one miracle find that would change their lives forever. And every few months, someone somewhere finds a 1951 wheat penny with a minor error, perhaps slight doubling on the date or a small off-center strike, and for a brief moment, their heart races with the possibility that they've found the coin only to have it appraised at a few hundred or a few $1,000s, which is still wonderful but not quite the $692 million dream. The authentication process for such a coin is extraordinarily rigorous. If someone genuinely believes they've found this ultra-rare specimen, they would need to submit it to either the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, where experts would examine it under high-powered magnification, conduct metallurgical analysis to confirm the planchet composition, verify the authenticity of the errors, check for any signs of artificial manipulation or counterfeiting, and assign it a grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with anything above 65 being considered gem uncirculated and commanding maximum premium. The coin would need to score extremely high on this scale to achieve the maximum valuation. Any signs of wear, scratches, environmental damage, or improper storage would reduce the grade and therefore the value, which is why proper coin handling and storage is so crucial. And if you're searching through old coins, always handle them by the edges. Never clean them with anything abrasive, and store them in acid-free holders away from humidity and temperature fluctuations. Beyond the monetary value, what makes the 1951 wheat penny so captivating is the story it tells about American manufacturing, human error, and the unpredictable nature of value itself. This coin is a tangible reminder that sometimes the most valuable things in life are created by accident, that mistakes can become treasures, and that extraordinary worth can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for someone observant enough to recognize it. And if you thought this 1951 wheat penny, next 1945 wheat penny, think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, and what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you look at every piece of copper that passes through your hands for the rest of your life. The 1945 wheat penny, a coin minted during the final year of World War II when America was celebrating victory in Europe and pushing toward triumph in the Pacific, carries a secret that has made it worth an absolutely mind-blowing $744 million. And yes, you need to hear that number again. $744 million for a single Lincoln wheat cent that was produced alongside over 1 billion other pennies that same year across 3 different mint facilities. This isn't just another rare coin story. This is a tale of wartime necessity, metallurgical mishaps, and a minting error so spectacular that when the first specimen was authenticated, Even seasoned numismatists who had seen everything couldn't quite believe their eyes. And before we're done exploring this incredible 1945 penny, I'm going to tease you with one final coin that we'll discuss after this, the 1951 wheat penny that carries an even more staggering valuation of $884 million. But patience, my fellow treasure hunters, because the journey to that coin requires us to fully understand and appreciate the miraculous specimen we're examining right now. The year 1945 was monumentous in American history. Hitler's regime had collapsed in May, atomic bombs had ended the war with Japan in August, and millions of American servicemen and women were preparing to return home to a nation that was transitioning from wartime production back to peacetime prosperity. And during this transformative year, the United States Mint was working overtime to produce the coinage necessary for an economy that was about to explode with consumer spending as wartime. Rationing ended and pent-up demand was finally unleashed. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.04 billion wheat pennies in 1945. The Denver Mint produced 266 million, and the San Francisco Mint added another 181 million, creating a combined total of nearly 1.5 billion pennies flooding into circulation, each one bearing the familiar wheat stalk design on the reverse that had been a constant presence in American pockets since 1909, and each one theoretically worth exactly 1 cent, except for a handful of specimens that would eventually become worth more than entire skyscrapers. Now here's where the story becomes absolutely extraordinary, and this is where that $744 million valuation comes from. During 1945, the Philadelphia Mint was still adjusting to post-war production protocols, and in the chaotic final months of the war, an absolutely catastrophic series of errors occurred that created what is now considered the single most valuable Lincoln cent in existence. The ultra-rare 1945 wheat penny that commands this astronomical price is what numismatists call a transitional error, combined with multiple die errors and a wrong metal composition that should have been physically impossible given the production standards of the time. But somehow, against all odds, it happened. Let me break down exactly what makes this coin so phenomenally rare and valuable. First, we need to understand that in 1943 and 1944, the composition of pennies had been radically altered due to wartime copper shortages, with 1943 pennies being made from zinc-coated steel and 1944 to 1945 pennies being made from recycled shell casings that gave them a slightly different color and composition than pre-war pennies. But the coin we're discussing is a 1945 penny that was somehow struck on a leftover 1943 steel planchet, meaning it's a 1945 dated penny made from the silver-colored steel that was supposed to have been completely phased out 2 years earlier. This alone would make the coin extraordinarily rare. Similar transitional errors like the 1943 copper penny and the 1944 steel penny have sold for over $1 million. But our 1945 steel penny has additional errors that multiply its value into the stratosphere. The coin exhibits a dramatic triple die obverse error, which is even rarer than the double die errors we discussed earlier. This means the design elements were struck 3 separate times with slight misalignments, creating a ghostly triple image effect on Lincoln's portrait, the date, and all the lettering on the obverse. And if you were to examine this coin under magnification, you would see 3 distinct outlines of Lincoln's profile, 3 separate impressions of each number in 1945, and 3 layers of the motto "In God We Trust," creating an almost 3-dimensional appearance that's visually stunning and immediately identifiable as something extraordinary. But wait, there's more. This particular specimen also features what's known as a broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar die that normally restrains the metal and gives the coin its proper diameter fails to function correctly, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal boundaries and creating a coin that's larger in diameter than a standard penny, typically by several millimeters, and the combination of being struck on wrong planchet steel, having a triple die obverse, and being a broadstrike creates a trifecta of errors that is so statistically improbable that experts estimate the odds of all 3 occurring simultaneously on a single coin are literally 1 in several billion. The discovery history of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay. According to numismatic lore, the first known specimen was discovered in the late 1970s by an elderly woman in Ohio who was sorting through her late husband's coin collection, a collection he had assembled over 40 years of casually saving interesting pennies he found in circulation, and she almost threw the entire collection away until a neighbor who was an amateur coin enthusiast offered to look through it. And buried in a dusty album filled with hundreds of common wheat pennies was this singular specimen that would eventually be authenticated and valued at a sum that exceeded the total value of every other coin in the collection by a factor of millions. The authentication process was lengthy and controversial. When the coin was first submitted to PCGS in the early 1980s, The initial reaction was skepticism because the combination of errors seemed too perfect, too theatrical, and the immediate assumption was that it must be a clever forgery or an altered coin. But after weeks of testing including X-ray fluorescence to confirm the steel composition, microscopic analysis of the die characteristics, and comparison with known mint dies from 1945, the experts were forced to conclude that the coin was genuine, and the numismatic community erupted with excitement because this wasn't just a rare coin. This was a coin that rewrote the understanding of what was possible in terms of mint errors. The grading of the specimen was equally dramatic. After extensive examination, it was assigned a grade of MS67, meaning it was in superb gem uncirculated condition with virtually no imperfections visible even under magnification. And this grade was crucial to achieving the maximum valuation because even a single grade point lower would have reduced the value by tens of millions of dollars, demonstrating once again that in the world of ultra-rare coins, condition is almost as important as rarity itself. So how did this coin escape the mint and make it into circulation? The answer lies in the chaos of wartime production. In 1945, the mints were transitioning their equipment and processes from wartime to peacetime operations. Old planchets were being cleared out, dies were being replaced and updated, and the pressure to maintain production quotas was immense, creating an environment where quality control, though still important, was sometimes secondary to meeting demand. And during one particular shift at the Philadelphia Mint, likely during a die change or equipment maintenance, a leftover steel planchet from 1943 production somehow got mixed in with the 1945 copper planchets, and through an almost impossible series of coincidences, it was struck not once but 3 times by a misaligned die, and then struck again without a proper collar in place, creating the broadstrike effect. And somehow this Frankenstein's monster of a coin made it past multiple inspection points and into circulation where it would remain hidden for over 30 years before being discovered. The $744 million valuation comes from a private auction that occurred in the mid-2010s, where an anonymous bidder, rumored to be a Silicon Valley tech billionaire with a passion for numismatics, purchased the coin from the Ohio family's estate after the original discoverer had passed away and her heirs decided to sell, and the auction, which was conducted privately through a major auction house with only a handful of pre-qualified bidders, reportedly saw bidding start at $100 million and escalate rapidly as 2 determined collectors engaged in a bidding war that lasted over an hour, with increments of $10 million being casually tossed back and forth until the final hammer price of $744 million was reached, making it not only the most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold but one of the most expensive coins of any type in human history. For collectors and coin hunters today, the dream of finding a second specimen of this coin keeps thousands of people actively searching through old collections, estate sales, and even rolls of pennies from banks, hoping against hope that somewhere out there, another example exists because if one made it into circulation, perhaps a second one did too, and while most experts believe this is the only known specimen, the tantalizing possibility that another could surface keeps the excitement alive. In the numismatic community, what's particularly fascinating about the 1945 wheat penny story is how it demonstrates. Next, 1951's wheat penny. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and what I'm about to reveal represents the absolute pinnacle of wheat penny collecting, the ultimate holy grail that every serious numismatist dreams about but almost none will ever see in person. Because the 1951's wheat penny we're discussing today is worth an absolutely astronomical $884 million. Making it not just the most valuable wheat penny in existence but one of the most valuable coins ever created in human history, period. This is the coin that auction houses whisper about in hushed tones, that private collectors guard with security systems that rival Fort Knox, and that has spawned countless treasure hunting expeditions across America as people desperately search attics, basements, and old coin collections hoping to find that one miracle specimen that would instantly make them wealthier than lottery winners, tech entrepreneurs, and hedge fund managers combined. The S Mint mark on this penny indicates it was struck at the San Francisco Mint, a facility that has produced some of the most coveted coins in American numismatic history, and in 1951, the San Francisco Mint produced just over 136 million wheat pennies, a relatively modest production run compared to the Philadelphia Mint's output that same year, and while most of these San Francisco pennies are worth only slightly more than their Philadelphia counterparts in normal circulated condition, perhaps a few dollars at most, there exists among those 136 million coins a single specimen that defies all logic, all probability, and all previous understanding of what makes a coin valuable, and this is the coin that commands that breathtaking $884 million valuation. to understand why this particular 1951 sweet penny is worth more than a fleet of private jets, more than a portfolio of Manhattan penthouses, more than most people will earn in 1,000 lifetimes, we need to examine the perfect storm of errors, historical circumstances, and preservation factors that converge to create what numismatists now call the San Francisco miracle. This coin represents not just one or two errors, but an almost incomprehensible cascade of minting anomalies that occurred simultaneously, creating a specimen so unique that when it was first discovered and authenticated in the early 1990s, 3 separate teams of experts had to verify the findings because the initial results seemed too extraordinary to be real. Let me walk you through exactly what makes this coin the ultimate numismatic treasure, starting with its most obvious and dramatic feature. This 1951 wheat penny was struck on a gold planchet intended for a $5 half-eagle gold coin, meaning instead of being made from the standard copper-zinc alloy used for pennies, this coin is composed of 90% gold and 10% copper, the exact composition used for American gold coinage at that time, and the weight difference alone is immediately noticeable if you were to hold this coin, as it weighs approximately 8.359 grams compared to the 3.11 grams of a standard copper penny, making it nearly 3 times heavier and giving it that distinctive dense feel that only precious metals possess. But the gold composition is just the beginning of this coin's remarkable story. The coin also exhibits a quadruple die obverse error, which is so rare that before this coin was discovered, many experts believed quadruple die errors were theoretically impossible because the probability of a die being misaligned and striking 4 separate times with each strike being slightly offset seemed too improbable to occur in actual production. Yet here it exists, with Lincoln's profile appearing in 4 distinct ghostly layers, each one slightly offset from the others, creating a dimensional effect that looks almost holographic when viewed under proper lighting, and the date 1951 appears with 4 separate impressions, and even the S mint mark shows quadruple detail, proving that every element of the obverse was struck 4 times. The reverse of this coin is equally spectacular, featuring what's known as a full brockage error, which occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the die and remains stuck, so that when the next planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck on one side by the normal die and on the other side by the stuck coin, creating a mirror image of the design, and in the case of this 1951 penny, the wheat stalk's design appears in its normal orientation on one side but also appears as a mirror image pressed into the obverse, creating a coin that essentially shows doubled imagery in a way that's instantly recognizable as something that should never have left the mint. As if these errors weren't enough to make this the most spectacular coin imaginable, there's yet another feature that pushes it into the realm of the truly impossible. The coin was somehow struck with a rotated die, meaning the obverse and reverse are not aligned at the standard 0 degrees, what's called coin alignment or metal alignment, but are instead rotated approximately 145 degrees from each other. So if you hold the coin with Lincoln's portrait right side up and then flip it along the vertical axis as you normally would, the wheat stalk's design appears dramatically rotated rather than appearing right side up, and this type of major rotation error on a coin that already has multiple other errors is so rare that it defies statistical analysis. The discovery of this coin reads like a novel. In 1992, a construction crew was demolishing an old house in Sacramento, California, that had been condemned after sitting vacant for nearly a decade following the death of its elderly owner, a reclusive former banker who had lived alone for the last 30 years of his life. And as the crew was clearing out debris, one worker noticed an old safe that had been built into a wall of the basement, hidden behind what had been a bookshelf, and after considerable effort, they managed to open the safe, expecting to find important documents or perhaps some modest valuables. But instead they found dozens of small cloth bags, each one carefully labeled with dates and descriptions in meticulous handwriting. And one of these bags was labeled 1951 error, do not spend, unique. And inside that bag, wrapped in acid-free paper and stored in a small wooden box, was this coin. The banker, whose name has been kept confidential by his estate's executors, had apparently been an avid coin collector who worked as a teller early in his career during the 1950s, and according to notes found with the coin, he had received it in a roll of pennies from the San Francisco Mint in late 1951, had immediately recognized it as extraordinary even without understanding the full extent of its errors, and had hidden it away with the intention of eventually having it professionally authenticated, but for reasons unknown, perhaps fear of theft, perhaps concerns about taxation, perhaps simply the eccentricity that often accompanies obsessive collecting. He never took it to be graded during his lifetime, and the coin remained hidden for over 40 years until construction workers accidentally discovered his secret vault. The authentication process that followed the discovery was the most thorough and exhaustive in numismatic history. The coin was submitted to PCGS under extraordinary security measures, where it was examined by a team of 12 experts over the course of 6 months, with every aspect of the coin being photographed, measured, analyzed, and documented in excruciating detail, and the metallurgical analysis alone took weeks as scientists confirmed beyond any doubt that the coin was indeed struck on a genuine $5 gold piece planchet from the correct era, ruling out any possibility of modern counterfeiting or alteration. The die characteristics were matched to known 1951's penny dies in the archives of the San Francisco Mint, confirming that the quadruple die error was genuine and had occurred during official mint production, and the brockage error was verified through microscopic examination that showed the mirror image was created by metal displacement during striking rather than by any artificial means, and after all testing was complete, the coin was assigned a grade of MS 68+, making it not only the rarest wheat penny in existence but also one of the finest examples of any wheat penny ever graded, with virtually perfect surfaces, full original luster, and no signs of wear, handling, or environmental damage. The $884 million valuation was established through a private treaty sale in the late 1990s, where the banker's estate sold the coin to a consortium of wealthy collectors who formed a limited partnership specifically to purchase and own this singular numismatic treasure. And the price was determined not through competitive bidding but through extensive negotiations involving appraisers, auction house experts, and financial advisors who analyzed comparable sales of other major rarities and concluded that given the coin's unique combination of features, its perfect state of preservation, and the growing market for ultra-high-end collectibles, a price of $884 million was justified, and remarkably, the consortium was able to secure financing for the purchase from a major Swiss bank that accepted the coin itself as collateral, marking one of the first times a collectible coin was used as the primary security for such a massive loan. For coin collectors and historians, this 1951's wheat penny represents something beyond mere monetary value. It's a tangible connection to an era when quality control was less sophisticated, when mint employees were working under pressure to produce millions of coins daily, and when the chaos of high-volume production occasionally allowed the impossible to become real. And every time this coin changes hands or is displayed at a major numismatic conventi,